It's a freaking awesome tie too. Props to my dad. It's my dad's old tie. It's like circa 1983, freaking crushing. I'm like ready to walk in fast and tight and be like, gentlemen, the merger is complete. Merger is assured. Drinks are on me. I'm taking the 115 story elevator down. The guys who just signed the contract, they walk. They walk, meet me at the bar. Yeah. Welcome to maple syrup history. For as much as each man is a part of the human race, and human nature is something social, and has for a great and natural good the power also of friendship, on this account God willed to create all men out of one, in order that they might be held in their society, not only by likeness of kind, but also by bond of kindred. Therefore, the first natural bond of human society is man and wife. Nor did God create these each by himself and join them together as alien by birth, but he created the one out of the other, setting a sign also of the power of the union in the side, whence she was drawn, was formed. For they are joined one to another side by side, who walk together and look together whither they walk. Marriage, I say, is a good, and may be by sound reason defended against all calumnies. Men and women enjoying marriage for all of its benefits, but of course for the begetting of children and the glorification of God. So, on the good of marriage, certainly as Augustine has taught us throughout the semester, with City of God, confessions, all things that God has made are good. Marriage is good. Where does it fit into the larger kind of Christian hierarchy, praxis of goods and that kind of thing? Let me continue here from where I left off. Forsooth in them were being prepared and brought forth future things, which now we see fulfilled in a marvelous and effectual manner, whose married life also was prophetic, whence not after the wonted custom of human wishes and joys, but by the very deep counsel of God, in certain of them fruitfulness obtained to be honored, in certain also barrenness to be made fruitful. But at this time towards them unto whom it is said, if they cannot, let them be married, we must use not consolation but exhortation. But them unto whom it is said, whoever can receive, let him receive, we must exhort, that they not be alarmed, and alarm that they not be lifted up. Wherefore virginity is not only to be set forth that it may be loved, but also to be admonished that it not be puffed up. We're going to break apart, all this kind of stuff, all 53 points of these entries here. But yeah, reference here to St. Paul, right? It is better to be married than be on fire. The concupiscent desires of our fallen nature, of course, often manifest in sexual desire and sexual sins, and the church has always taught, fornication is a big deal. It's not like, oh, come on, like everyone does this, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, we are called to wait for marriage. God help us to be faithful to our spouses. And so even if earlier on, Augustine says in the opening of this of holy virginity, even if we are called to accept virginity and celibacy for the kingdom of God, if we are able to accept that, if we have that calling, if we have a priestly vocation, whatever it may be, it is better to be married than be on fire. Augustine certainly following St. Paul here. Maybe that is a sign that you're called to the married life, to the family life. Well, you hear classic, kind of testimonials from guys, some of them who are like, well, I even perhaps considered or discerned a priesthood, but I think, I really felt myself called to the married life. I always was interested in that aspect, and there was even a burning desire of, I want to get married, I want to have a family. And the church, in her wisdom, in the sacrament of marriage, puts up the proper guardrails around that. It's not like, oh, well, you're just a very kind of like passionate person. Well, just give in to those passions or whatever. No, there's a place to contain that fire in the fireplace of the sacrament, as it were. So right away, he's kind of juxtaposing and differentiating, like, celibacy, holy virginity, awesome. Marriage is also good, on the good of marriage, right? But, let me read that last point that he puts here. But also to be admonished, that it not be puffed up. Wherefore virginity is not only to be set forth, that it may be loved, but also to be admonished, that it not be puffed up. Pride is a sin. Pride is the root, of sins, right? It's the worst sin. It's the sin that drives other sins. It is very, very bad. It is wrong to be, as Augustine was. What an amazing example he is for us. What an example, amazing example he is for us in overcoming his own sexual sin, overcoming his flaws, and his inability to pull himself out of the kind of the thorns and the thickets of these things. But if you are, by the grace of God, able to persevere in purity and chastity, Augustine reminds us it should not be puffed up. We should not have this attitude of I'm better than others. I am better than all those who have fallen in this regard, because it does us well to remember, there by the grace of God go I. So anyways, I kind of wrap this preamble up. Both of these themes, rightfully I think, go hand in hand. I've kind of talked about the next 2 weeks in this introduction kind of at the same time, right? Simultaneously. Because we're discussing in this episode on the good of marriage, and then next week on the 18th on holy virginity. So I guess we could have done it in any order. I said earlier before that we definitely were bound in by the guardrails of Confessions and City of God relative to, just reading the book straight up. Of course, you have to progress through books 1 through 5, 6 through 10, 11 through 14, as we did with City of God. You have to move along in this kind of linear, obvious fashion. The one-off analytic stuff about Augustine that are kind of separately taken, discussed in and of themselves, could be done in whatever order we wanted to. I certainly could have talked about holy virginity first and then marriage, or vice versa, but once more, the order will be this class, this episode of the good of marriage, or on the good of marriage, and then next week of holy virginity. But you saw in that opening that I even read ahead for next week of holy virginity, he mentions that the previous book that he had written that we're going to, of course, be discussing in this episode. So I don't think anyone needs to be told, that these two topics are so unbelievably intertwined and connected. So, let me read you now the opening of the good of marriage, chapter 1, kind of like first indent in this chapter. I think it'll be the nice springboard as the video turns to maple syrup and we begin the larger in-class group discussion. For as much as each man is a part of the human race, and human nature is something social and has for a great and natural good the power also of friendship, on this account God willed to create all men out of one, in order that they might be held in their society, not only by likeness of kind, but also by bond of kindred. Therefore the first natural bond of human society is man and wife. Nor did God create these each by himself and join them together as alien by birth, but he created the one out of the other, setting aside also the power of the union aside, whence she was drawn, was formed. For they are joined one to another side by side, walk together, look together whither they walk. Then follows the connection of fellowship in children, which is the one alone worthy fruit, not of the union of male and female, but of the sexual intercourse. For if it were possible, there should exist in either sex, even without such intercourse, a certain friendly and true union of the one ruling, the other obeying. Okay, so Augustine certainly is going to, lean into those passages we read about in St. Paul's letters, right? The relationship of the man and the woman relative to themselves, and relative as that united couple together before God. So without further ado, welcome to our next episode. God bless you guys. Thank you for being here. You don't want to go there. As always, people are like, you don't want to go where? Well, come to class, you'll find out. Come to class and you'll find out, I guess. Today's on the good of marriage. Today's on the good of marriage. And we're just going to fly through a bunch of stuff. Point by point, we're going to get after it. And as always, I'm so excited. I love this class so much. All the people in this class, you're the best. Thank you for coming. Always much appreciated. If you're like, he doesn't care at all, he doesn't care. He would just do it to the camera. That is true. I don't care. But thank you nonetheless. I mean, I can not care and be grateful, right? Those are not mutually exclusive. No, I do care. I do really care. I care so much, I'm going to spend 5 minutes in a rabbit hole going back and forth, debating with myself pros and cons of caring versus not caring. And to have people be like, when is he actually going to start the class? You know, I don't know. I have 32 points for you guys. Today is, again, once more, on the good of marriage. Why did Augustine write this? Jovianus, who a few years since tried to found a new heresy, said that the Catholics favored the Manichaeans because in opposition to him they preferred holy virginity to marriage. That's point number one. So this guy, Jovianus, Augustine, is going to have like tracts and treatises and stuff against the heretics, against whoever, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Remember, we just finished City of God, Confessions, all these things. We have a whole nother semester to go on Augustine. He often is writing something in response to someone. It's kind of a problem. This guy is saying Catholics hate the body. Basically, Catholics hate sex. Catholics are prudes. That kind of thing. We hear this today. This is still very prevalent in our culture today. Catholics are anti-body, anti-sex. Catholics are just living in this kind of dream world, whatever, ethereal thing. Catholics hate fun. And he's like, this is not true. The Manichaeans are the ones who are the heretics who are like, the body is bad. Catholics do not believe the body is bad. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. Praise God. The eternal Word of God, the second person of the Holy Trinity. Last week's, of course, discussion was on the Holy Trinity. Jesus Christ took unto himself flesh. Flesh is good. We eat his body, blood, soul, and divinity at Mass. Catholics love the body. Genesis, right at the beginning, chapter 1, the two shall become one flesh. So Catholics are very pro-body. And he said, I'm going to write this. But Augustine, he doesn't disagree. Favored the Manichaeans because in opposition to him, they preferred holy virginity to marriage. Augustine does think virginity is better than marriage. Let's be very, very clear. Next class, he's going to talk about virginity. He's going to echo Christ's words in the gospel, he that can be celibate should. St. Paul says it's better to marry than be on fire. If you can't deal with the concupiscent lust, well, get a wife, get a husband, you have your spouse, you two can, form a family, and that sexual expression is a beautiful, good thing. Things that people will spend hours and hours and hours discussing, like theology of the body, seminars, whatever, right? Which is, theology of the body is not the topic of today's lecture, but St. Paul says it's better to be married than be on fire, but that doesn't mean that celibacy and, being, saving yourself for the sake of the kingdom isn't the ultimate goal. Perhaps indeed it is. Why do we have a celibate priesthood? Because priests can dedicate themselves wholly to God. St. Paul says, right? A married man is anxious about the things of the world. His wife, how do you please his wife? It's true. I think I have the greatest wife in the world, praise God. I'm always thinking about, well, how can I make her happy, do whatever. If you're a priest and a married man, you're thinking often about your wife, your kids, your home life. The priest can be fully dedicated on the congregation, on the Mass, on setting up perpetual adoration, the rosary, ministering to the sick and the poor. Christ says, right? Whoever, it's a hard saying, but who can do it should. Who can be celibate should be celibate, Christ says. So Augustine is like, celibacy is actually better than marriage. Let's be very clear. And here it's where, like, I am a married man. So this is not, you're just saying that because people who watch the show could accuse me of like, well, you just always say Catholics are the best because you're a Catholic. And that's often true. Like, I am a Catholic. I'm often saying, like, and I do believe Catholicism is the best, 100%. That's the full expression of Christianity, definitely. That's not in a way to detract from others. Whatever is good in others can be fully completed in Catholicism. I'm super 100% pro-Catholic, devout Catholic, duh. But here, you can't accuse me of like, oh, you're just saying this because, you think celibacy is better. I'm a married man. So here, as a married man, I'm admitting like that is an inferior state to, being a consecrated virgin for the kingdom of God. These holy men and women who have given that up for the sake of the kingdom. What Augustine is writing, he's not trying to say, I think marriage is better than virginity. Over the courses, he'll say virginity is better than marriage. He's saying these clowns, these heretic clowns, I love that word. I'm laughing because I said clown. He didn't say clown. These clowns are like, Catholics hate the body. Catholics hate sex. Catholics are all prudes. Catholics just say, if you have sex, you're a disgusting person. Even married couples are committing sins. No, he's like, that's what he's writing against, to be very, very clear. That Augustine might not be subject to any such complaint or calumny before speaking of the superiority of virginity. Right? This is in this preamble before his own words. Before he speaks about the superiority of virginity, which we'll talk about next week, why he thinks virginity is better than marriage, which again, last time I'll say this, he does. He thought it well to write on the good of marriage. It's very, very important to understand that. Like, in the end, Father Crappy, my favorite preacher, said, you will be a winner or loser for all eternity. Heaven or hell. It's very black and white, very binary. 0-1. Either you're in heaven or hell, winner or loser, right? Period. If you're lucky to go to purgatory, hopefully you can avoid purgatory and go straight to heaven, God willing, but you're part of the saved in purgatory. It's one or the other. We often bring this black or white aspect onto things. Virginity versus marriage. No, 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 no. Does everyone understand that? He's writing this to say it's not virginity versus marriage. Virginity is the National Football League. Marriage is playing for the Vandals. Both are good. Yes, playing in the NFL is a higher level of football than playing for the Vandals, but both are good, if you'll allow the weak analogy. He's saying I'm discriminating between two goods. It's not, if you don't play in the NFL, you suck at football. No, you have the NFL, it's the best, then you have CFL next, major college like the Vandals. Playing high school football is a great accomplishment. They're all good, it's just one is better than the other. Do I want to learn about football technique from the Moscow Bears quarterback or the Chicago Bears quarterback? Of course. That doesn't mean the Moscow Bears quarterback, that doesn't mean he sucks. He's really good, actually. I don't know I don't follow high school football at all, but whoever the starting quarterback for Moscow High is a great football player, I'm sure. Maybe he'll be an NFL player one day. That's what he's talking about. He's saying, like, we're talking about goods. Virginity is the highest state for people to be in. It's the best, but marriage is very, very good also. And he's going to ask a question hilariously later. He's like, well, people will say, what if everyone became a virgin? Then the world would disappear. Anyone know how he responds to that? Everyone's heard that critique, right? Well, of course, sex is good because sex is how people come into being. Duh. Basic birds and the bee stuff. If no one had sex, if there was no marriage, there'd be no people. What does Augustine say to that? He's like, good. The kingdom of God would come sooner. Yeah. So everyone would die out, the world would be over, and that's good. He's like, you clowns. He's like, you want to just keep perpetuating the species ad infinitum. That actually keeps this cycle going. Like, let's have everyone die. If everyone becomes a virgin and lives a chaste life, the kingdom of God will be hastened. So that's actually good. I'm going to remember, Augustine's a really cool guy because I like him a lot. Because Augustine becomes a chaste guy, celibate priest, bishop, who was prodigiously promiscuous earlier. So he's lived both of it. A lot of priests who have had like Augustine like previous stuff and like were, lived a very promiscuous life or whatever, did a bunch of stuff, they will say, and I believe them, oh, I wish I had not done that. I wish I had been pure my whole life. Of course. But you also can admit there is some like credibility to someone who's gone through that. They actually didn't know what they're talking about. A person like Augustine who had been with tons of women and had this concubine, when he counsels someone on marriage and purity, you weren't like, oh yeah, whatever, dude, you're just this out of touch celibate priest. No, he lived it. He lived all that. He in fact talked about that was his biggest thing, was his like crazy constant lust. That was his favorite sin. He maybe wasn't tempted by money or power, but he loved women in a very disordered way of just the hookup culture that is so prevalent today. So Augustine does have credibility in that sense, because before, thank God, by the grace of God, becoming celibate and all that, he did all this stuff. And so he could then truly tell people, do as I say, not as I do, not as I have done, right? I read the opening earlier, so I'm going to skip that. But he talks about really quickly, number 3, threefold good of marriage. What are the 3 goods of marriage? You ready? Faithfulness, offspring, and the sacrament. So he says those are the 3 goods of marriage. Faithfulness, fidelity, obviously, avoiding adultery, what's one of the 10 commandments? The number one is marital fidelity, a husband and wife to each other. Offspring, the propagation of, the family, and the sacrament itself. Catholics were and are unique in a lot of ways. It's why, people say, don't get married on a beach, right? It's like get married in a church wedding because it's a sacrament. You're making promises before God. Sorry, atheists, all those guys who are like, marriage is just a piece of paper. That is not what Catholics believe. How sad is it when Catholics act that way? Well, I'm just getting the judge to sign whatever. Yeah, whatever. This is basically my girlfriend. I'm her boyfriend. We just have a paper. The state says we're married, whatever that means. No, that's not what Catholics think about it. Catholics think you have this, until death do you part. I think it's about Matthew 19:6, perhaps, about divorce, whatever God has joined together, man cannot put asunder. Right. No divorce. Moses permitted you divorce out of the hardness of your hearts, but in the beginning it was not that way. Adam and Eve are to be, together forever in perfect unity, perfect fidelity to one another. So fidelity, offspring, and sacrament. Theology of the body, we'll talk about, this has become a modern thing. Again, we're not going to talk a lot about sex in this. This is not talk about theology of the body. But we'll talk about the good of marriage, of being like the propagation of children and the mutual comfort of the spouses, which is just euphemistic for the act itself, right? That also has a place in and of itself in the bounds of marriage. It's not just about, as the old critique levity against Catholics was, you guys, again, you're just against fun. You guys just, you're about just having a million kids and that's all. No, it's about both. There is a mutual comfort of the spouses and the enjoyment of the marital state. But Augustine doesn't even include that. He's just faithfulness, offspring, and the sacramental character of it. Point number 4 was what I opened this episode with. You all saw this earlier. By the way, I have 2 new openings to my episode. Everyone watching this online knows it. People in class, maybe not. It's so sick. I'm walking in the Arboretum in where the moose is. Anyone go to the Arboretum and see the sign, beware of moose? I haven't seen the moose. I want to see it. I want to film it. I haven't seen the moose in a long time. I saw her a couple times. She was really chill. Everyone's like, moose are dangerous. I believe it. I believe they're dangerous. I believe if they charge me, if a moose charged me and ran into me, it would probably get hurt. Let's be honest. It would probably be that was a bad decision hitting that guy in the chest. That hurt a lot. So let's keep it real, please. But seriously, I haven't seen the moose in a long time. I'd love to see the moose. But in that beautiful Arboretum, U of I Arboretum, I have an opening. It's cool. I'm walking along. I'm just filming, and I just say, yeah, welcome to maple syrup history. And then I have a second one right before the maple bottles come up. I'm it's your boy Winco in a suit. Welcome to maple syrup history. So it's like a double entry. And before those entries, as you see on here, on the stream, if you're watching on YouTube later, I read point number 4. It was just, I'll do an abbreviated point of it. Still page 1 of the New Advent printout, the link that I had. Therefore, the first natural bond of human society is man and wife. And a much longer quote, but Augustine basically says that, this is the oldest kind of command of God. And he continues on. I'm still on chapter 2. Let's call them chapters. He has 35 chapters, 35 entries. Fill the earth and rule over it. Increase and be multiplied. Right from the beginning, this sexual fruitfulness is at the heart of God's plan. Augustine right away is pointing a finger at all the clowns who are Catholics hate sex, Catholics hate marriage, Catholics hate all that stuff. They're just about the soul. They're just about Platonic forms. Augustine himself very much loved Platonic stuff. No. Catholics are not Manichaeans who heretically say the body is evil. In Genesis chapter 1, one of the first commands is fill the earth and subdue it, increase, be multiplied. He talks about point number 6 here, paragraph 3. But now in good, although aged marriage, albeit there is withered away the glow of full age between male and female, yet there lives in full vigor the order of charity between husband and wife, because the better they are, the earlier they have begun by mutual consent to contain from sexual intercourse with each other. And so again, Augustine is not anti-sex, but he's actually the deepest, I think this is so cheesy, what is a girl looking for in a guy and vice versa? A sense of humor. That's not number 1. That's so stupid. Sense of humor is not most important. That's so stupid, right? That is not number 1. It is not, period. I will fight anyone. Sense of humor is not number 1. I think number 1 probably actually is physical attraction. That's what leads someone oh, that person that guy is attractive, that girl's attractive, I will talk to them. And then probably the thing that glues someone together, you think no? You think so? I want to hear the rebuttal. I think yes. I think 100% yes. The first thing is physical attraction. That leads, and I'm talking now about probably, the typical dating. Like imagine like two 23-year-olds, like people that are going into the full flower of the idea of later on discerning marriage, getting married, having children. So there is the sexual component of like, I'm looking for a partner with whom to have a family. I think the first thing is, it's definitely physical attraction, but that is superficial. After that, you start talking about the deeper values and whatever. I imagine like a hypothetical 23-year-old guy and girl, wow, that guy's attractive. Wow, she's beautiful. They sit and talk, and maybe they go on to a second date and maybe get married super fast. If they're like, oh, we're both devout Catholics, or we're both waiting for marriage, or both have the same values, both love God, versus they sit down, I think you're attractive, so do vice versa, and they have nothing in common, that dissipates. So I don't think sense of humor is number one. I don't think it's like, I'm not attracted to this guy at all, but he's so funny. No, that's literally the friend that a girl has, right? Tell me, Loretta, chime in. Rip my argument to shreds, or tell me it's good, or tell me what do you want to say?
Well, I think it's a very individual thing, but
sure.
Yeah, for some people, it's different qualities.
Sure.
I remember when I met my husband, I met 3 guys at the same time. The thing that attracted me to him was his talkativeness and his sense of humor.
Sure.
So for me, that was very attractive because the other 2 just sat there.
Got it. Right. There you go. No, and I'm probably, hey, 1-0 you. Me 0, you 1. Sure. Sense of humor is always listed stereotypical. I'm probably mocking that because it's so stereotypical, but of course, and I guess that, maybe to synthesize my point here, to me, I still stand by that 100%. The physical attractiveness is the door through which you entered to sit at the table with someone. But you're right. In addition to sharing values, that beautiful personality, that this is so attractive, this guy's so funny, he's so warm, whatever, versus just like stonewall, whatever, one-word answers. Yeah, agreed. Well, what he's saying here though is Augustine. He's like, the number one thing that actually keeps the husband and wife together is mutual charity. It's really beautiful. Actually, my favorite married couple, Blessed Emperor Karl and Empress Zita, Karl is the last emperor of Austria-Hungary. And Zita, his wife, God rest his soul, he died of a pulmonary condition very young, in 1922, age 35, after probably too from the stress, losing the throne. This is a whole other discussion. But they had like 8 kids, beautiful marriage, both devout Catholics. On their wedding day, so I guess they were married for 11 years. They were married, and then through the First World War, and he died. She never remarried. On their wedding day, they said to him, like, our job is to get one another to heaven. That was their motto. Like, my job is to get you to heaven. That's so beautiful. That's exactly it. It's not, I think you're so beautiful. I think you're so funny. Your thing. I love being with you. Those are all great. I love taking walks with you, and I love our, conversations. I'm trying to get you to heaven, you, me. So Augustine's saying more than anything else. And he's like, even after way past the age of like sexual fruitfulness and like at the point where you can't even have kids anymore, you imagine the classic, like, oh, my grandparents married for 50 years, that stereotype. They can have the most alive marriage and a mutual charity. So here's a very beautiful point he's making. It's not just about being young and all that and the kind of, excitement and the romantic stuff. A lot of it is that kind of deep, unity pointed towards God, right? Which again is Matthew 22, 36 through 40 the whole time. To love God above all and love your neighbor as yourself. A man loves his neighbor as himself in his wife, and she him, in trying to get each other to heaven, right? So very, very good. He talks about you never can put aside the question of children. Remember, he says there's 3 points to the good of marriage. Let me read them again so I don't mess them up verbatim. Faithfulness, offspring, sacrament. Faithfulness, fidelity, which is the duh, right? Offspring, and sacrament. He says offspring, he's like, even the lust of couples one unto each other. In theology of the body, like it'll say, John Paul will say, and you're not allowed to like lust after your wife. You shouldn't. Like, this is obviously a fine line. Like, and I'm first person to say, I think, physical attraction is so important, 100%. But a man and a woman in marriage, they shouldn't like, it's not like, okay, we're married now, so we can just go crazy on lust. Lust is always bad. Lust is always a perversion of pure love. Well, how is lust tempered? By parental affection. For there is interposed a certain gravity of glowing pleasure wherein husband and wife cleave to one another, they have in mind they be father and mother. There's this idea of like, okay, well, the point of our union too, as husband and wife, down the road, is to be these good parents and our sweet kids and raise them, and like it's familial, and it's so true. Like you think about the idea of like the mom and the dad, that is a very affectionate bond. It's not the heart pounding first date man and wife. I can't believe this woman is so gorgeous, and she's like, this guy, he's making my palms sweat. I can't speak. Like, it's not this romantic affection. The parent idea is the mature kind of like caritas, affectionate bonds of love. Of the soul, there's a certain that is ought to prefer even the health of the body, wherein even this life force is contained. He's always talking about though, like the soul. This is chapter number 4. Chapter number 4 is about the idea that the constant, although we say the body is good, to put those things of the soul above the body. Chapter 4, I guess, well, maybe I'm wrong. We have been talking about sex actually a lot. No surprise with, marriage is obviously, it's an integral question to marriage, but I didn't realize how much theology of the body this talk would be. Fine. And then you might ask me, like, you're an idiot then. Did you prepare your notes on this? I did. I guess I don't know. I was like watching a football game. I was taking the notes. I don't know. What did Augustine say? Like, wait a second. Hold on. I got to see the replay. So, like, Augustine said this. Oh, no. Get him. Oh, no. Maybe it was like this, like that. I don't know. Can our quarterback freaking throw it to the open guy? Does he not know those dudes are the other team? Maybe that was what was happening. I don't know. But here he talks about the mutual debt spouses owe each other. Again, there's so much euphemistic language. It means the idea that, the mutual comfort, the idea of like, well, it shouldn't devolve into lust, but the sexual expression is obviously part of marriage. Here he says, and this is where Augustine is like, I don't want to use the word woke. That's the improper word that's so culturally charged. I mean, here where Augustine, like, he's not a feminist, but Augustine gets a false charge of like, Augustine was so, trad, whatever. It seems like some of the modern trad people are way more like pro-patriarchy than some of the fathers were. Some of the fathers are way more for, like women's rights properly construed. Like you see some people today, which I find disgusting, guys who are like, women should have no opinion on anything, they should shut up and obey the man. That's not what the fathers said. They never say that. Even like, wives obey your husbands. The other part of that, husbands love your wives like Christ the church. So, okay, wives obey the husbands after the husband goes on a cross for you. And like, it's like, today it's just kind of like these guys who are truly kind of like misogynistic, which is like, oh, women should just have no opinion, nothing. No. That's not classic Christianity. That's some kind of modern perversion. That's not what the father said. And Augustine himself says here, right? The woman has not power over her own body, but the man, again in the like manner, the man has not power over his own body, but the woman. People always leave that part out. Some of these like sincerely misogynistic people are like, oh, see, like it says in the Bible, the man has, power over the woman. Well, the woman has power over the man. It's supposed to be mutual. So in the idea of mutual comfort and stuff, it's supposed to be this agreed upon union of equals. It's never one party dominating the other. I think we can agree. I would say both extremes are awful. The super crazy feminist who's like, men suck, men are evil, that's bad. Just like the actual misogynistic guy, like women should never talk. Like those are both bad extremes. And the church does not teach any of that. Here he says here, what about couples who are like, do bad stuff? Whatever is immodest, shameless, base, that married persons do with one another is the sin of the persons, not the fault of marriage. It's point number 11, chapter 5, page 3. Again, the people that critique Christians, these guys, these married people do this debauched stuff. We're obviously not going to go into details at all. Nor does he provide, and that would be obviously inappropriate. But anyone can fill in the blank. Anyone who like commits sexual sin within marriage, the opponents of Christianity are like, see, it's because marriage is bad. And he's like, no, you clowns. Again, that's the fault of the people. Those people are grimy. Those people are at fault. They're bad. It's not that marriage is bad. Marriage is good. Those people doing the shameless base stuff in marriage were probably doing it outside of marriage before and whatever. They just like that stuff. That's wrong. That's bad. Reject all sin. It's not the fault of marriage. But he's constantly talking about, once more, this kind of like taking care of one another's needs, a mutual service of sustaining one another's weakness in order to shun unlawful intercourse. Marriage guards from adultery and fornication. This is the St. Paul point again. It's better to be married than be on fire. If you feel like Augustine was that way, I can't stop fornicating, Augustine said, then it was good for him to get married. Or for, in his case, obviously take and read, become a bishop, become totally continent, celibate, right? Avoid sex. But praise God and thank God for the church and her wisdom. The church tells us, okay, if you feel like you're a very passionate physical person, we have an answer for you. It's called discern marriage to the right person, get married, and then there you go. And then you have your outlet properly in the context of marriage, and you're no longer sinning. The church does not say, Augustine is at pains, that like sexual stuff is bad, that desire is bad. It must be in the proper context. Best example I've ever heard for like the proper context is the idea of fire. Fire burns down a house, but it warms it in a fireplace. It's a great example here that, again, theology of the body people often use. If the fire is kept in the fireplace, it's a wonderful thing. The problem is outside that. Okay, let's continue on. I don't want to repeat old stuff. We're going to be I actually see my timer today because I'm recording on my 1080 HD phone, which comes out in 720 when I put it in the processor, but it's way better than stupid Zoom. Zoom is stupid. FYI, I hate Zoom. When I have stupid, dumb, useless Zoom, I can't see what the clock is. I can see today my little timer on top. We're at 25, 41, 42, 43, 44. So we're 25 minutes in, and my preload to the episode is about 16 minutes. Brad King and I, our Friday session. By the way, everyone's always invited. It's not required, but on Friday we always kind of preface the coming week. So this Friday, next week is on Holy Virginity. So this Friday, Brad is here. I never want to assume he will be, but he usually is. And we have this wonderful talk. We record a kind of preamble and put it onto the larger episode. So the episode's about 42 minutes in now. I think we'll probably be about an hour, probably 15 more minutes. It's a nice, neat, tight thing. It's not a lot. And on that point, I don't want to go over well-trodden ground over and over and beat a dead horse. The first 8 chapters is him defending just that sex and marriage are good, and the opponents of these things are wrong because they're idiots. Latin for clown, clownus. I don't know. Populi, right? Vox populi is the voice of the people, right? Vox populi clownus est. The voice of the people is the clown. I don't know. I don't think it's clownus. That's incorrect. That's 100% now, the thumb back on me. Here's the idiot. Clownus. That's not a Latin term. At all. Point number 9. Paragraph number 9. Truly we must consider God gives us some goods which are to be sought for their own sake, such as wisdom, health, and friendship, but others which are necessary for the sake of somewhat, such as learning, meat, drink, sleep, marriage, sexual intercourse. For of these, certain are necessary for the sake of wisdom, as learning, blah, blah, blah. As marriage or sexual intercourse, for hence subsists the propagation of humankind, wherein friendly fellowship is a great good. These goods, therefore, which are necessary for the sake of something else, whoever uses not for this purpose, wherever they are instituted, sins, in some cases venially, other cases damnably. So there are some things we just have to do all the time. Health, he says friendship, wisdom, the pursuit of wisdom, which the book of wisdom tells us the beginning of all wisdom is fear of the Lord. Sex is not necessary for life. It's not. Despite the fact that it propagates the species. What I mean is every single person on earth does not have to have sex. So Augustine's saying, therefore, he's saying and this is a critique against Erik Erikson, I think. Anyone ever hear of Erik Erikson, the hierarchy of human behavior or something like that? I'm messing this up. My apologies to all psychology majors. Oh, wait a second. I know a lot of psychology majors. They're the worst. No apologies. Erik Erikson in the kind of hierarchy of whatever, hierarchy of being or something, I think. He basically made this point. And if it's not him, people made this point in the 60s. That if you're not having sex, there's something wrong with you. You're not grown up. You're immature. This is the load of crock. This is absolute BS. Augustine is almost ripping this thousands of years in the future. This disgusting 1960s, 70s, this led to a lot of the exodus out of the priesthood and the nuns in the wake of the sexual revolution in the 60s. They read this crap and they're like, well, I'm celibate. I don't have sex. I must be missing something out of the human experience. I need to be laicized. That is very bad. No, sex, as Augustine says, is not necessary for all people. It's not. If you're not married, you don't have to have sex, actually. I know it sounds crazy in our oversex culture. You won't die if you don't have sex. That literally is the kind of thought, right? Well, but if without sex, you die. No, you don't, actually. You don't. You actually don't. Wait a second. Doctors have confirmed, without sex, you don't die. So he's saying right here, these kind of goods, that are, that are for a certain purpose, sexual intercourse for the purpose of human propagation is geared to a certain type of state in life. Here's the earlier point that was really funny. Point number 10. But I am aware of some that murmur, what they say if all men should abstain from all sexual intercourse, whence will the human race exist? Would that all would this, only in charity of a pure heart and good conscience and faith unfeigned. Much more speedily would the city of God be filled, and the end of the world hastened. That's absolutely hilarious. Oh, what if everyone stops having sex? Then good. That's actually good. Yeah, go.
Was it the Shakers that decided to not have sex and they all died out?
Was it the Shakers that decided not to have sex and died out? I have no idea, but absolutely, but that is mathematically guaranteed. If they, as a community, decide not to have sex, they're all dead. True. Like, they did die. They were extinct. Self-extinction. Okay, yeah. Very, very, very possible. No, there are these very kind of devout Protestants. Are the Shakers proximately related to the Amish somehow?
I don't know what they really are, but I think that's.
See if the Amish are like a Baptist sect or.
They're the Amish. They're an Anabaptist sect. So,
thank you.
Like the Mennonites and all that.
Got it.
I don't know if the Shakers though.
Got it. No, thank
Maybe
you.
more like Quaker.
It's to me exactly. I'm not sure. Thank you, Dominic. That sounds really good to me. I appreciate your insight on that. I have no idea myself. That sounds right. That sounds correct. Like in that Mennonite, Amish, Quaker ballpark. But okay. Through the middle, he constantly continues on with some of the similar analysis that we talked about. He talks about obviously the indissolubility of marriage. This is number 17, page 6 of the excerpt. The marriage can take place if a person's first ill-joined, an honest decree falling after is manifest. But a marriage once and for all entered upon in the city of God, or even from the first union of the two, the man and the woman, marriage bears a certain sacramental character, can no way be dissolved by the death of one of them. This is obvious. This is the old Catholic marital vows, before people started like writing their own vows, that kind of stuff. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that in the Catholic Church. My wife and I did not write our own vows. If someone told me, do you want to write your own vows? I'd be like, I don't want to vomit, so no. If I was allowed to, I wouldn't want to write my own vows. I love you so much. You're like a dove. No thank you. Just give me the normal vows. I don't know if Catholics are allowed to write their own vows or not, but the classic stereotype. It's almost as stereotypical as the, here comes the bride, and you may now kiss the bride. Is until death do you part. That is the Catholic thing, right? That is the Catholic idea of that's why the Church allows for annulments, declaring that these people will never validly married for whatever reason. There's impediments. Again, I am not a canon lawyer. No comment. I submit wholly to the Church in these matters of jurisprudential decisions regarding the marital statement. But Catholic marriage is to be indissoluble. Here's a great analogy here on number 18, talking about how we can compare gluttony to lust. I've always liked this. I always thought this was very, apt. For what food is unto the conservation of man, sexual intercourse is unto the conservation of the race, and both are not without carnal delight. Which being modified and by restraint of temperance, reduced unto the use after nature, cannot be lust. But what unlawful food is in the supporting of life, the sexual intercourse of fornication or adultery is the seeking of a family. And what unlawful food is in luxury of belly and throat, this unlawful intercourse is a lust that seeks not a family. And what the excessive appetite of some is in lawful food, that intercourse is a matter of pardon in husband and wife. And therefore, listen to this, therefore it is better to die of hunger than to eat things offered under idols. And so it is better to die without children than to seek a family from unlawful intercourse. Again, he thinks virginity is better. He's like, no, don't just, truly may God forbid it. Truly may God forbid it. Don't just go to the brothel. Well, I'm having a tough time finding a wife, so I guess I'm going to go, do that. Don't do that, he's saying. Sex, sadly, God forbid, God help us, has become an idol, where it's to be sought above all things. Look at this disgusting dating apps and stuff that are literally based upon just like sex, hookup culture, right? He's saying that it's better to die of hunger than do that. It's better to be consumed by our lust and bite into the wood of the cross, offering that up, than to commit these sins for the purpose of just having relief from that stress. It is better to be married than be on fire, married than on fire, not just hook up with whoever kind of thing. So Augustine, it goes without saying, he's very, very anti hookup culture. And if you're like, what does this guy know? What does this stupid guy Augustine know about hookup culture? He literally lived it. He literally invented hookup culture. And I am being sarcastic with that, but he invented it. But he was the most promiscuous guy. Again, most people know Augustine's story, but he really reads some of his confessions. It is shocking, some of the stuff he writes. It is shocking. Like, some of the stuff that he writes are literally like, I cannot believe he wrote that. I'll give you an example. Like, he writes once like, I hated my state so much. The only thing that cleared my mind was like going out and hooking up with as much women as possible. Stuff like that. Like, going out and just doing this as much as possible. Like, very vulgar, lustful, like just giving into my lust completely. So Augustine understands that. That's why I think he's such a wonderful saint for people struggling with whatever type of, sexual sin and stuff, because he lived it. Reading him, you're not reading, that stupid meme, which I find so disgusting. It's so offensive and dumb, the okay boomer type stuff, which these Gen Z people be like, okay boomer. It's like, no, actually the boomers are about 1,000 times smarter than you. The joke's on you. Like, okay, Gen Z. But this kind of attitude, like, okay boomer, is stupid old guy, Augustine. He knows nothing. He knows everything about sex. I think he really does. From a lived experience, shamefully, as he would say, to his own regret and shame. But so when he writes about this, I think he's got a lot of, cultural cachet. He writes about polygamy at one point here. And he, of course, makes the natural argument, it's number 20, why in the old times were men allowed multiple wives but never a wife and multiple husbands? It's just the idea that he goes full biology. A man can impregnate 3 women. It's just the other way around. If it was for the purpose of propagating, the local tribe or whatever, you could have more children come into the tribe through a man with multiple wives, and it's just duh. I don't think it has to be explained further. But he still says this is bad. He's like, polygamy is wrong. Polygamy was in this time that, before the time of Christ and etc. And in the time now, we are he makes this beautiful analogy of like, Christ is one, Christ is the king, the eternal unity of Christ with his bride, the church, is one. And so men and women are to be faithful, fidelity number 1 to each other. No polygamy. Sadly today, there's a new kind of polygamy movement. And it's not just like these kind of you hear about the FLDS, right? The fundamentalist Latter-day Saints and stuff. And okay, people know that was the huge split for the Mormons, the FLDS with the LDS. I think in 1890, when the mainstream LDS church, which today forbids polygamy, banned it. It's the principle, the plural. Brigham Young, who is the inheritor of the LDS religion after Joseph Smith died, had 54 wives himself. The FLDS continued the plural marriage. I'm not talking about FLDS, but even mainstream people are saying, oh, maybe polygamy is wrong. The church says it is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. But he comments on that. He's in so many ways anticipating future questions and also answering critics of his own time. Marriage is a good, he says. Let me reread on number 29 what I opened this episode with. He cannot be more clear. Quote, marriage, I say, is a good, and may be by sound reason defended against all calumnies. Quote, marriage, I say, is a good, and may be by sound reason defended against all calumnies. Calumnies meaning, lies, attacks. Calumny is not just calumny and detraction. It's not just polemics and denunciations and arguments against, making stuff up about people. And marriage is a good. But what's the best marriage? Listen to what he says. Marriage is a good wherein married persons are so much the better in proportion as they fear God, with greater chastity and faithfulness, especially if the sons whom they desire for the flesh they also bring up after the spirit. Isn't that amazing? Listen to that. Married persons are so much better in the proportion they fear God, with great chastity and faithfulness, especially if the sons whom they desire after the flesh they bring up after the spirit. Let's use my hypothetical people. My 2 23-year-olds, they got married because, man, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, and that's the best looking guy, and it was very physical. They have this, the romantic story. Augustine's saying, even if they enter into marriage, it's this romantic, physical attraction, and that joins them together, and they have 10 kids because of their physical attraction to one another. Fine. But if they were to have a good marriage, they should bring up those kids to fear God, love God, and if they themselves fear God, doing the family rosary every night, praying, that is what makes a good marriage. Not that checking in age 45, you still think he's the best looking guy after 20 years? Not that kind of crap. That's my earlier point. I still will defend, I believe, physical attraction is the most important thing that gets people together in the first place. definitely, over time should take a back seat. So fear of God should always be number one, but also mutual charity, friendship, those kind of things. Maybe now you're up 1-0, you're up 10-0 now. The idea of sense of humor and talkability, conversational pleasure with one another becomes way more important than even the physical things. That was a good song. It's my new maple syrup history theme song. Bop, 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 bop. Page 26, he says, haters gonna hate no matter what. Right? Christ says, right? For John came neither eating nor drinking, they said he was a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, they said, lo, a glutton and a wine bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. Right? Remember that from the Bible? Exactly. This is exactly the attitude people have towards Catholics. You Catholics are such prudes. You Catholics you don't understand sex. You're no sex, no fun. You suck. At the same time, you Catholics are so sexual. Theology of the body, everything's about sex, and that's why you have 6 trillion kid families. So which one is it? Do Catholics suck because they're anti-sex or too much sex? Like which one? And that's exactly it. So haters gonna hate no matter what he says. He's like, we're talking about this thing about chastity and stuff. He's like, opponents of church are always gonna say, and people do. Catholic Church is the most, they're just so pacifist. They never get involved. Oh, they're just above it, all above it. Catholic Church is so bloodthirsty. The crusade, so which one is it? Are they too pro-war, anti-war? Too pro-sex, anti-sex? Oh, Catholic Church is too female. All the women are involved. Catholic Church hates women. Like, which one is it? Like, right? So haters gonna hate no matter what. Haters gonna hate no matter what. I say expletive deleted the haters. So, number 28. I love that, by the way. I want to make that be a fake profanity. Profanity is wrong. No joke here. I will not tell you what I confess in the confessional, obviously. But I would just say that I do struggle with profanity. Thank God. God grant me the grace not to. Never like taking God's name in vain. But all the other kind of profane words, absolutely. Which is not good. But I would love, instead of like, it's kind of weird to be like, beep, beep, beep. Like, that'd be weird, like make the censor noise. Why don't you say expletive deleted? This party is so expletive deleted and lame, and then you're gonna laugh. It's so cheesy, and you're not mad anymore. Can you imagine like in road rage, expletive deleted you, expletive, you're already laughing. It's already funny. That's way better than beep you, and self-censoring that way, 28. Hey, can we get back on topic, guys? I'm trying to be serious here. Therefore, this is number 28, page 8. Therefore, if we compare the things themselves, you may no way doubt that the chastity of continence is better than marriage chastity. I told you. We may no way doubt chastity of continence is better than marriage chastity, while yet both are good. It's like playing the NFL and playing for the Vandals. So, no question, he says, no, 100% better is to be chaste, to be a virgin, to offer all that to God. That's the best thing. You will not die if you don't have sex, actually at all. Actually, it might be very good for you to avoid the traps of lust. St. Thomas Aquinas, I don't know if everyone knows his story with sex. He was locked in a tower by his brothers. Everyone familiar with this? They didn't want St. Thomas Aquinas to become a Dominican. St. Dominic, right? That order of preachers. They're a begging order. And his brothers didn't want St. Thomas Aquinas to become a Dominican because he was like a duke or something. Aquinas, as I stroke this purple tie and play with it and flip it around, Aquinas was born on the edge of purple, which means on like the edge of royalty, right? It's a freaking awesome tie too. Props to my dad. It's my dad's old tie. It's like circa 1983, freaking crushing. I'm like ready to walk in fast and and be like, gentlemen, the merger is complete. Merger is assured. Drinks are on me. I'm taking the 115 story elevator down. The guys who just signed the contract, they walk, meet me at the bar. I'll see you down on Wall Street. That's what this tie says. Aquinas was born on the edge of purple, and his brothers wanted him to become a Benedictine monk. Now, if you're like, how dare you, the Benedictines, whom I love so much, or at Labora, how dare you say the Benedictines would be this like elite order and rich? Aren't they all supposed to be divested of earthly stuff, focused on God? Sure. But sadly, we always know the church, as the spotless bride of Christ, is perfect. There's always corruption into leaders and whatever. And I think in some ways, his family, I don't want to calumnize them. I think this is correct. Maybe they were like a little bit worldly in some ways, wanted him just to become the abbot of this local monastery, Monte Cassino, actually, I think the founding monastery. And Aquinas is like, nah, I'm good. He's like, I'm going to go join these guys like who go and beg in the streets. This was honestly like for Aquinas, them being like, I got this amazing job set up for you as CEO of this New York company. Incredible, Fortune 500. And he's like, I'm going to become an actor in Hollywood, Dad. Actually an influencer. And just live on the streets, live in a van. Like they're just like, so they lock him in a tower, Aquinas. And they try to tempt him, and they're not going to let him out till he relents. And they send a prostitute in to like either just tempt him or even just like straight up hook up with him and like just get him away from his plan. No one needs to be told. Sex can be used as a weapon, obviously. This guy has this like huge goal set on, this lofty Dominican thing. We'll have him hook up with this prostitute and, he'll then, he'll become more worldly for obvious reasons, right? Apparently Aquinas like pulls like a burning ember out of the fire or something and like points it at her and he's like, get out of here or something like that. And she flips out and freaks out. Who wouldn't? He's like, leave or something. And at that point it was like God was so pleased with his chastity that he didn't give in, that God sent an angel or just gave him this grace that Aquinas never struggled with a lustful temptation the rest of his life. It was taken away from him. It's amazing. Would not all of us want that? That classic, the famous sin, adultery of the heart. People have impure thoughts. It seems like most people struggle with that at some point. I think Jimmy Carter, bless him, and I'm not trying to, say Jimmy Carter is a good or bad guy. God bless Jimmy Carter. I won't comment on politicians. But this was sweet. Carter apparently was a pretty devout Baptist. And he once talked about, I think he was always faithful to his wife, Rosalind, and all that. But they asked him, do you have any sins? And he famously said, it was like, the culture was like, this is so embarrassing that he said this. But it was very beautiful. He's like, I struggle with adultery of the heart, impure thoughts. Well, it was a very Christian thing to say. Most people do have lustful thoughts every now and then, including, as Augustine says, especially their own spouse, right? Well, that's even towards my spouse, it's inappropriate. Aquinas never had a lustful thought ever, because it's amazing. So he could focus on his work, and that's why, because lust darkens the mind. It doesn't help. So he wants to be very clear here. Marriage is it's a very good thing. But if you can be celibate, if you can be chaste, you can avoid lust. That is actually better. That really is better. All right, what else can I tell you guys here? I'll just finish with the indissolubility of marriage, I guess. Then we'll be done. Number 32. Therefore, the good of marriage throughout all nations and all men stands an occasion of begetting and faith of chastity, but so far as pertains unto the people of God, also in the sanctity of the sacrament, by reason of which it is unlawful for one who leaves her husband, even when she has been put away, to be married to another, so long as her husband lives, no, not even for the sake of bearing children, and whereas this is alone cause, wherefore marriage takes place, not even where that very thing wherefore it takes place falls not, is the marriage bond loosed, save by the death of the husband or wife. So Augustine is wont to do is often very, very wordy and long-winded. I say with the highest respect. If Augustine is 100, what's my intellect compared to him? 1 of 100, maybe 0 point something, maybe nothing, period, maybe -5. When I say he's wordy, I'm not worthy to shine his shoes. This guy's a genius, but he is wordy. He is wordy and long-winded. The last one on the Holy Trinity was a beautiful word, but it was so wordy, right? To love the love which is love itself while it's being loved, sentences like that. What he's just saying there again is just until death do you part. So, God bless you guys. Thank you for listening as always. And I have nothing else to say, so I'm just going to sign off in that way that's super awkward. And all right, guys, see you. Bye. So let me try that. Ready? So that's all I have. All right, guys, see you. Bye.